Shockwaves spread across the Middle East when the Pentagon made an unexpected move. The United States is rushing thousands of combat-ready Marines and a powerful fleet of warships toward the Strait of Hormuz. This is not a drill. This is a massive escalation. The world was caught off guard when reports confirmed that over 2,000 U.S. Marines, part of the prestigious 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, are being redeployed from Japan to the heart of the conflict. They are heading straight into the most dangerous waterway on Earth. Pentagon officials announced that the deployment includes the USS Tripoli, a powerful amphibious assault ship carrying F-35 fighter jets and V-22 Ospreys. This unit is heading to the region as Iran's response to recent airstrikes has proven far more resilient than anticipated. Officials described it as a critical move to counter escalating Iranian attacks. They described the situation as an unprecedented threat to global shipping. According to reports, the deployment comes as Iran has effectively choked maritime traffic through the strait, rocking the global economy. This is not just another military exercise. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important strategic choke points on the planet. About a fifth of the world's oil, roughly 20 million barrels a day, flows through this narrow passage. The fact that traffic has slowed to a trickle has sent global oil prices spiking above $100 per barrel, and experts warn it could hit $200. According to U.S. officials, the Marines will join over 50,000 American troops already in the region. Their mission is unfolding in real time. While the White House insists it wants to protect shipping, the reality on the ground is far more dangerous. According to the Trump administration, the goal is to reopen the strait. President Trump stated that U.S. Navy escorts for tankers will begin very soon, and he has warned Iran of unparalleled firepower if they interfere with free passage. However, Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, says something entirely different. He has vowed to avenge Iranian lives and has doubled down on the blockade. In his first public address, he explicitly warned neighboring countries against hosting U.S. bases and vowed to continue blocking the strait. Iranian officials claim they have the upper hand. They argue that their asymmetric warfare capabilities, including naval mines, anti-ship cruise missiles, and swarms of fast attack boats, make the strait a death trap for conventional warships. This is where the situation moves from critical to terrifying. Military experts point out that the strait is only 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest point, with shipping lanes just 2 kilometers wide. This forces massive tankers and U.S. warships to sail dangerously close to Iranian shores. This development could mark a serious escalation in naval warfare. Iran has spent decades preparing for this exact scenario. Experts from MIT and the Center for Strategic and International Studies warn that Iran possesses an arsenal of thousands of sea mines. Even a small number of these cheap weapons can shut down a port for weeks. In fact, experts say the U.S. Navy has never prioritized mine clearance, making this one of the biggest vulnerabilities for the American fleet. Consider this. Back in 1988, a mine that cost Iran about $1,500 struck the USS Samuel Roberts. The damage to the American warship cost nearly $100 million to repair. Today, Iran has far more advanced weapons, including drones and unmanned boat swarm technology. The implications extend far beyond the battlefield. The global economy is now hanging in the balance. Japan, which imports over 90% of its oil from the Middle East, has directly pleaded with Iran to ensure the safety of vessels. But so far, Tehran is not backing down. Even the United Nations has warned that the restrictions on shipping could severely disrupt humanitarian supply chains worldwide. If the strait remains closed, it won't just be gas prices that go up, it will be the cost of food and medicine across the globe. But here is the strategic dilemma. While the U.S. is sending this powerful fleet, some allies are stepping back. The United Kingdom has stated it will not be drawn into a wider war. Germany has also signaled reluctance, saying they cannot support a conflict they did not start. This leaves the United States facing Iran with less international backing than expected. So what happens next? The USS Tripoli and its 2,500 Marines are expected to arrive in the coming weeks. Some analysts believe their mission could be to seize small islands near the shipping lanes to set up air defense bubbles. Others suggest a more dangerous option, seizing Iran's main oil export hub, Kharg Island to use as a bargaining chip. For now, the situation remains uncertain, and the world continues to watch closely. The Strait of Hormuz is a tinderbox, and with the most powerful fleet in the world heading straight for it, we're looking at a crisis that could define the future of global security. But let us go back and understand exactly how we got here. The history of this conflict did not start overnight. Tensions between the United States and Iran have been building for decades, but the current escalation can be traced back to the collapse of the nuclear deal. When the United States withdrew from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, Iran gradually began to abandon its commitments. Enrichment levels increased, inspections were limited, and the rhetoric from Tehran became increasingly hostile. Then came the assassination of General Qasem Soleimani, which brought the two countries to the brink of war. Missiles were launched at American bases, and for a moment, the world held its breath. Now, years later, the situation has spiraled even further out of control. The current deployment is not just a show of force, it is a direct response to Iranian actions that have crossed every red line. The USS Tripoli is not alone. Accompanying this amphibious assault ship is an entire strike group, including guided missile destroyers equipped with the Aegis combat system. These ships are designed to track hundreds of threats simultaneously, from incoming missiles to swarming boats. The F-35 fighters on board represent the most advanced aerial combat technology in existence. They can penetrate enemy air defenses, gather intelligence, and strike targets with pinpoint accuracy. The V-22 Ospreys provide the ability to insert troops rapidly without needing a traditional runway. This combination of assets makes the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit one of the most lethal fighting forces on the planet. And they are heading straight into the lion's den. Iran understands the power of this fleet, which is why they are not relying on conventional warfare. Instead, they are playing a different game. The Revolutionary Guard has spent years studying American tactics and identifying weaknesses. They know that the US Navy relies heavily on aircraft carriers and large surface ships. They know that these ships are vulnerable in confined waters, so they have built an entire military doctrine around exploiting these vulnerabilities. Speedboats, naval mines, anti-ship missiles, and drones form the backbone of their strategy. They do not need to sink an American warship to win. They just need to cause enough damage to disrupt operations and create chaos. A single mine striking a tanker could block the strait for weeks. A swarm of small boats could overwhelm a destroyer's defenses. A missile fired from the coast could hit a target before anyone even sees it coming. This is why military analysts are so concerned. The Strait of Hormuz is not the open ocean. It is a narrow, congested waterway where large ships cannot maneuver easily. In a traditional naval battle, the United States would have every advantage. But in this environment, the advantage shifts to the defender. Iran knows every rock, every current, every blind spot. They have practiced these scenarios for years, simulating attacks on American warships with alarming accuracy. And now, with the most powerful fleet in the world approaching, they are preparing to put those plans into action. Meanwhile, the diplomatic front is just as tense. The United Nations has called for an immediate de-escalation, but so far, neither side is willing to blink. Russia has expressed support for Iran, warning the United States against any military adventure. China, which relies heavily on oil imports from the region, has urged restraint while quietly increasing its naval presence in the Arabian Sea. The European Union is caught in the middle, trying to preserve the remnants of the nuclear deal while avoiding a confrontation with Washington. Every major power has a stake in this conflict, and every major power is watching closely. Inside Iran, the situation is equally volatile. The death of the previous supreme leader has created a power vacuum, and Mojtaba Khamenei is still consolidating his authority. He needs to project strength, both to satisfy hardliners at home and to deter enemies abroad. Blocking the strait and confronting the United States serves both purposes. It rallies the population around the flag and demonstrates that Iran will not bow to pressure. But it also carries enormous risks. If the United States responds with force, Iran could face devastating strikes on its infrastructure, its oil facilities, and its military bases. The regime knows this, which is why they are carefully calibrating their actions. They want to push just hard enough to gain leverage, but not so hard that they trigger a full-scale war. On the American side, the calculus is equally complex. The Biden administration, or in this scenario, the returning Trump administration, faces competing pressures. There is a domestic audience demanding action to protect American interests and allies. There is an international community urging restraint. And there is a military establishment warning about the dangers of getting dragged into another Middle Eastern conflict. The decision to send the USS Tripoli and the 31st MEU reflects a desire to project strength without committing to ground combat. But as every military planner knows, once forces are deployed, events can quickly spiral out of control. A single miscalculation, a single accidental clash could ignite a conflict that no one wants. The oil markets are already reacting to these fears. Prices have surged past $100 per barrel, and some analysts predict they could reach $200 if the strait remains closed. That would have catastrophic effects on the global economy, triggering recessions, fuel shortages, and social unrest. Countries like India, which imports most of its oil from the Middle East, are already scrambling to find alternative supplies. China is tapping into its strategic reserves. Europe is accelerating its transition to renewable energy, but that is a long-term solution, not an immediate fix. In the short term, the world remains dependent on the oil that flows through the Strait of Hormuz. And then there is the human cost. Behind every headline, every military movement, every diplomatic statement, there are real people whose lives are being affected. Iranian families wondering if their sons will be called to fight. American sailors and Marines preparing for combat, knowing they could be heading into harm's way. Civilians in the region who have already endured decades of conflict, now facing the prospect of yet another war. The shipping crews on tankers, trapped in the middle of a geopolitical struggle, unable to control their own fate. These are the unseen faces of this crisis, the ones who will bear the heaviest burden if diplomacy fails. The coming weeks will be critical. The USS Tripoli is still days away from reaching the strait, and in that time, there is still an opportunity for dialogue. Back-channel communications are reportedly underway, with Oman and Switzerland acting as intermediaries. But the public rhetoric remains harsh, and trust between the two sides is virtually non-existent. Every action is viewed with suspicion. Every statement is parsed for hidden meaning. In this environment, even a minor incident could have major consequences. Some analysts believe that the most likely outcome is a prolonged standoff. Iran continues to harass shipping, the US continues to escort tankers, and both sides avoid direct confrontation while claiming victory. Others warn that the situation is too volatile for such a stable outcome. They point to history, to the Iran-Iraq War, to the tanker war of the 1980s, to the downing of an Iranian passenger plane by the USS Vincennes. Accidents happen, mistakes are made, and in a region this tense, mistakes can be deadly. There is also the question of Israel. The Israeli government has long advocated for a tough stance against Iran, and some Israeli officials have hinted that they might take unilateral action if the United States does not. An Israeli strike on Iranian nuclear facilities could easily draw the US into a wider war, especially if American forces are already stationed nearby. This adds another layer of complexity to an already complicated situation. For now, the world watches and waits. The Strait of Hormuz remains open, but barely. The oil continues to flow, but at a trickle. The diplomats continue to talk, but without progress. And the most powerful fleet in the world continues its slow, steady approach toward the most dangerous waterway on Earth. In the end, this is not just a story about military power or geopolitical strategy. It is a story about choices. The choice to escalate or de-escalate, the choice to talk or to fight, the choice to prioritize national interests or global stability. Leaders on both sides will have to make these choices in the coming days and weeks, and their decisions will shape the future of the region and the world for years to come. The USS Tripoli sails on, carrying thousands of young Americans toward an uncertain fate. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard stands ready, armed with years of preparation and a determination to defend their homeland. And in between them lies a narrow strip of water, just 33 kilometers wide, upon which the fate of the global economy now rests. This is the reality of the Strait of Hormuz. This is the reality of a world on edge. And as the most powerful fleet in the world approaches, we can only watch and wait and hope that wisdom prevails over war. The situation remains fluid. Intelligence reports are changing by the hour. Military positions are shifting. Diplomatic efforts are intensifying. Nothing is certain and everything is at stake. The world has been here before, on the brink of conflict, staring into the abyss. Sometimes leaders pull back. Sometimes they stumble forward. Which path will be chosen this time, no one knows. Not the analysts, not the diplomats, not even the generals commanding the forces on the ground. All we know is that the strait is narrow, the stakes are high, and the most powerful fleet in the world is heading straight for it. What happens next will be written in the history books, for better or for worse. For now, the situation remains uncertain, and the world continues to watch closely. The Strait of Hormuz is a tinderbox, and with the most powerful fleet in the world heading straight for it, we are looking at a crisis that could define the future of global security. We will keep you updated the moment this story develops. If you want to stay ahead of the news, hit that subscribe button right now. Let us know in the comments. Do you think the US can secure the strait without starting a full-scale ground war? Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next update.